We are live. Looks like 42 people. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good afternoon. Hope everybody's doing well. Happy Tuesday. We'd love to know where everybody's from. We're going to give it a couple minutes for people to join, but if you want to put in the chat where everybody's calling from, I'd love to see where you're joining. Connecticut. All right. I'm a Mass guy, not far from Connecticut. There you go. First one. Very nice. Oh, Netherlands, tough game yesterday. Jersey, China. Awesome. Love China. George, you got Ben there? Oh, we lost George. Give it another minute or two. Looks like people from many different countries. Hello, everybody.
I think we have Cheryl.
Yeah, I saw Cheryl was there.
Hi,
Ben.
Cheryl.
Up to 57 now. I'll give it maybe one more minute. Hi, Emily. Hi, Arlen. One more minute, everybody. We're just letting some people trickle in. And I think we lost George too. Hopefully you can get back in. Yeah, sure. Get George. He's, I think his internet's. All right, I think it's time to start. Grace. That's it. All right, we're going to get started, everybody. Hello, I'm your host today. I am Bobby Peliquin. I'm the global vendor lead here at Channel Engine. I've been part of the team for just over 2 years and focused on our Amazon 1P products. Prior to that, I was the CEO of a little company called Retail Data Partners. We had developed the first vendor tools in the marketplace many years ago, and then were eventually acquired by Channel Engine. We're really excited that you guys can join this. We're looking forward to this conversation. I think it's going to be very insightful, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join. I know it's a very busy time right now, so we thank you for being part of this. And just to tell you a little about Channel Engine, if you're not familiar with us, so we are a global marketplace integrator, connected to over 1,300 marketplaces. Our corporate office, our headquarters are in Leiden, Netherlands, with offices around the globe. And really what we do is help you make it easy to manage and grow your business on marketplaces. So whether it's pushing content, getting all of your sales analytics and insights, dynamic pricing tools we have, inventory order management, really making it easy to manage and grow on multiple marketplaces. You'll see a couple of marketplaces here. We won't go through all of them, but whether it's Amazon, eBay, Target, Walmart, Bowl.com, we're connected to them. And that's going to be my Channel Engine sales pitch. And now I'm going to turn it over to the star, as I call them, the dream team. To use a Olympic USA reference, they are the Amazon dream team. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself. Martin, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Bobby. Thanks for everyone for joining us. I know, as Bobby said, it's a very busy time, so we appreciate you sharing your time and schedule with us today. My name is Martin Heubel. I'm used to work at Amazon in the capacity of a vendor and senior category manager. Took responsibility for various product categories from hardlines over to CPG or FMCG. And now since a little bit over 5 years, advise first-party vendors on their commercial needs and demands with the online channel, particularly coming in when it comes to annual vendor negotiations, go-to-market strategies, or the assessment of any profitability-led initiatives needed with Amazon. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to the conversation.
Bruno, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Bruno Ferreira, so I'm from Blue Dot e-commerce. I worked, before I founded Blue Dot, I worked as a global account manager for vendor accounts in the gaming category for about 7 years. It was an amazing experience. We had no training from Amazon. We learned everything, and I fell in love with it. So I set up Blue Dot to help vendors on their internal setup. We help them to build compliant processes, how to have visibility and trace back all the operations internally. We also support them aligning the cross-functional team and the ways of communicating. We usually find them working in silos, and I'm really looking forward for this discussion with this amazing group here. And thank you for the invite, for sure. Thank you.
All right, George.
Hey, Bobby, thank you for having me, and I really appreciate the group. My background is I'm Pioneer, one of the first people to ever feed data to Amazon at scale. Started in 2002. So I've been around the game a while. I work with best-in-class technology providers in the commerce space, such as Channel Advisor, to help them go to market and develop their business and meet their goals. My area of expertise is data automation and at scale. So really excited to be here. Hope that the people watching get some value out of this. That's the goal here for me. And yeah, really excited to be with the group. Appreciate it.
All right. Jerome.
So last but not least, I'm Jerome. Very happy like the others to be here in such an amazing group. I'm the founder of e-commerce. The e-commerce group is now 13 years old. And we started as an agency helping brands expand into Amazon as a vendor very much at the beginning. Now we have a mix of vendors and sellers because that's how business is a bit going. We help Europeans expand into Europe. Europeans go to the US, Americans go to Europe. We have now inside the group a large assortment of solutions for brands who want to grow fast. So we have the agency, but we have a distribution leg with our own warehouses in the UK and in mainland Europe. We do sell typical distribution, 3PL. We've got the digital marketing team with e-commerce digital marketing, and we have our own tool called Clari6, which I think would be very interesting for you guys to follow up. So we help brands on multiple elements. The promise is to grow and expand fast. I'm looking forward to share as many nuggets as possible today and to have a very insightful discussion. Thank you, Bobby.
Thanks, guys. All right, let's get started. We're actually going to start with a poll. So I know there's a lot of challenges on Amazon, probably more than what we've had here, but we want to get an idea of what is your biggest challenge in 2026. Also, if you want to see the results, you're going to have to vote. So go ahead, vote. We're going to just give it a minute. Let's see biggest headaches right now. Negotiations. Wow. right.
I think
Looks like
Martin, you're up next.
the winner, negotiations and profitability, I think, unless there's a last minute flood of, let's see. All right, Martin, I think you're gonna do a lot of talking later. Martin is our
Absolutely. Looks like it.
yeah. All right, we know that's a headache. I've been getting a lot of calls on that. We're going to definitely be touching that or talking in depth about negotiation and profitability along with everything else. But looks like that's the big one. All right, what we're going to cover today, we're really excited about this. So we've been talking internally for a while and just all of us excited because I think a lot of these webinars, you get maybe a little bit of insight and then it's a vendor trying to sell you their solution, showing you case studies. We are not going to show you a bunch of slides. Our sales pitch is pretty much over, and this is really about you guys and sharing the insights that this great team over the last 20-something years have learned on Amazon. So really excited, and again, thank you guys all for joining. We're going to start off with what is the Amazon vendor flywheel. So for those people that, Amazon has changed a lot, especially over the last couple of years, whether it's, negotiations getting harder, Amazon being ultra focused on profitability, AI is changing the way people shop. It's all interconnected now, right? You cannot be in silos, and more we see, very often we see teams in silos. So I'm going to leave it to team. What would you guys, for those people maybe new, haven't heard of the term Amazon flywheel, how would you define it, and why is it important to get it right?
I'm happy to start. Generally speaking, I think it has evolved a lot, right? We all know this classic flywheel that Jeff Bezos has introduced to shareholders back in the early 2000s, where they said, look, having your selection paired with a good customer experience, i.e. prime benefit offering, is leading to growth and thereby attracts more brands to actually come to the platform, which then creates this vicious cycle of more sales, more growth, which again then attracts and allows us to lower prices over time and start price matching more and more and more. I think what we've been seeing in the past few years, specifically following the final stages of the pandemic, is that vendor managers and Amazon's retail teams are increasingly becoming focused on profitability, and that the business model of Amazon has changed in its totality as well. If you're just looking at 2025 and Amazon's latest shareholder report, we now know that Amazon is very serious about spending their $200 billion in the expansion of AI solutions, right, and their AI footprint, which is the race between tech giants that's currently unfolding, not only in the US, by the way, but also over here in Europe and in other marketplaces, which these days has real world consequences for vendors and suppliers operating their business with Amazon. I think what I keep seeing in my work with clients, in my work with brands, is that Amazon is commonly mistaken as a retailer with whom you can have a true and meaningful partnership. While that may be true in the past, and while that is also certainly true when you talk with your advertising, your AWS counterparts who truly want to kind of set sales with you, with your organization, deeply embed also their supply chain solutions into your organization. I think what brands with this new flywheel need to be really careful about is that Amazon's retail teams are on a journey to automating themselves. And I always call Amazon not a retailer, but a tech-enabled marketplace platform. Whether you have a go-to-market strategy that is 1P or 3P is almost irrelevant today. But if your internal organization and your internal processes have not caught up with that reality, this is typically when then also the issues around profitability start to creep in.
Excellent. That's a great definition. Thank you, Martin. Anybody else want to chime in? I think he summed it up there.
It's difficult to go after Martin.
Yeah, it's difficult. Exactly. It's,
Yeah.
I think I can add, from my 20 some years, the difference today is Amazon's no longer a platform where moving fast and breaking things leads to any kind of success, really. So back to you, Bobby, kind of like automated inventory feeds, things like that at scale are super meaningful today. So that's, I think, why we're here. But it's a very different, and to, your point, Martin, about it doesn't really matter 1P, 3P. It actually does matter because of the regulations, and we can get into that, but that's another factor we'll talk a little bit about here today, how much the regulatory environment impacts things within the marketplace and external to the marketplace. So I think there's a lot to discuss, and maybe that's a whole different chapter too, but yeah, it's just no longer the wild, wild west.
No longer the wild, wild west. Yeah, exactly.
No.
Yep. All right, well, let's start up. I think we're going to start with the foundation and the catalog, right? It's where usually the vendor journey starts. I've seen a lot of, I think everybody I speak with, you know, they have some challenges typically, but you guys made a comment the other day that you've never seen a catalog 100% accurate. So if it's so important, it is the foundation, as we know, right? I'd love to know where our clients, you know, where brands making mistakes, maybe where they underestimate an impact. We know now, you know, having a catalog can impact your operations, your negotiations, your profitability, and your leverage with Amazon. So I'm going to pass it on. I'd love to hear what you guys have experienced with these catalogs that are not 100% correct, and how can they improve?
If I'm allowed, that I will start immediately with the initial load of the catalog. I've seen vendors, they invoice in units, they set up in cases because they actually got someone to help them, or then the reverse, they invoice in cases, but they didn't set up the catalog, so they receive the orders in units. We've seen, if you don't select what are you using as an identifier, a lot of vendors still don't know about that small, big detail. What's the identifier that you actually want to match if you're using EDI with your order, with your invoicing system, your ERP, the dimensions. I think everybody here in the room has been working, and I think it's, George, help us out here. Maybe it's still the same file from 20 years ago, the NIS. It's a flat file on steroids. Now we have some improvements in the web interface, but I think the file is still the same, right? So we have like 87 or 92 columns to complete. Some of them are conditional, mandatory. And I think the errors start in the initial catalog. When a brand is invited, probably a lot of the ASINs that are their brand are already someone 3P, someone is already selling them through Amazon. So the ASIN actually is created. So I think these new vendors, since they don't have the support from Amazon teams to initiate them, how to complete the file, they just get happy. Oh, everything is completed. We just need to complete this one showing on red. And they don't verify all the data, but probably who created that ASIN was the third party, a distributor. He didn't care about nurturing the band or getting the dimensions properly aligned with the product. So for me, it starts there. Nail it in the catalog, do it properly, review ASIN by ASIN, select your identifier when you're receiving the orders, check your invoice layout. It's very important also, this connection between your catalog and your ERP. Are you using EDI? If you are, you selected the identifier, but then you need to match. If Amazon is ordering in cases, match your system to cases too. If you can't make it cases, don't make it more complex. Just align it in units for the orders and then invoice in units too. We see a lot of, we're going to discuss that ahead, but shortage claims. A lot of them are caused by these things that, if are done properly at start, will really help downstream for sure.
Yeah. I mean, if I can take the position of somebody in the audience, right, listening to all of this, I mean, what would any one of you recommend? I mean, how to execute this? Do you need extra headcount to do it? Should you automate this? I mean, how to go about it? If you know that you have already service providers in place, you have a certain tech stack in place, but you're running into these catalog issues, like what's the best way to address these issues?
So I'm happy
depending
to jump
on the
on
size,
this one.
Martin.
Oh, okay, go.
Yeah, sorry, Jerome. Depending on the size of the catalog, I would agree to get a third-party software to help with that and get your marketing and content team on it. Another thing, that's actually a good point, don't get your commercial team to do it. Yes, okay, they sit in the big chair of Amazon managing, but get the help from marketing and content team, definitely. Sorry, Jerome.
No, well, I totally agree with what you've said. What I wanted to add, and it's also jumping a bit to what you said, Martin, earlier, is that there's a transformation of Amazon and AI. Our life is being changed by AI, literally. The thing is that some things are not changing at all. And sometimes it's more important to understand what is not changing and what is changing. So Amazon is doing a lot of noise around the investment because there's a battle and there's a PR battle about AI. They also fired a lot of staff because of AI, but you have to understand a lot of things are still not working with Amazon. And there's something to make everyone pretend that, okay, it's amazing, it's all automated. It's not at all. So the point is, indeed, it's the barrier to entry to sell to be successful is not with the buyer now, is really with how the key question is like, okay, how do you make it happen to have your catalog appear properly on Amazon? And the larger the company, the more complex it becomes. And if it was very simple, probably we wouldn't be working here and we wouldn't having a webinar, right? It's extremely complex and it has a lot of parts to it. It could be internally inside your own company that you're not matching the right things together, or your content is not actually very clean, or generally it's okay, but it's not okay for the whole 20 or 50 attributes Amazon is asking for. That's the first issue. The second issue is syndicating the content to Amazon. You can do it manually, you can do it automate it through a tool. That's the best solution. And then you need to make sure it appears, because you can send it, Amazon can receive it and still not make it appear. And that's what our team spend most of the time on is, okay, the content is there, but it's not appearing. You are the brand owner. The account is a brand owner. You've got all the rights, but for whatever reason, the content in Germany is driven by an account which is in the US, which has got account ownership for nobody knows why, and Amazon can't solve it. So the way of, okay, we need to find out who is the owner in the world of that content, and we probably need to update the content from that account from wherever it is. That's typically something AI will never solve. And that's why indeed a lot of processes will be improved by AI research, the customer facing part, most probably. The back part where we have to upload content is much more complicated. So for me, it's first understanding it's very complex, understanding that it has a big impact on how you're selling, and then making a task force around it. So task force plus technology, and both need to work together. But a technology, a tool on its own, from my experience, doesn't work alone, because Amazon will still have problems, and you need people to talk. So and if you have an AVS, that probably will help, but that doesn't always do the trick. So the thing is to have the whole team, so either internally or partially internal, external, and then finding the way of there's no magic here. It's work, it's hours of work, and you can't automate all of it.
Yeah. And then when you do get it right, you have Amazon things break, right? So we get a lot of clients where variations. We have one client where it was their single biggest issue growing on Amazon. It hurts the best ad conversion, hurts the bestseller rank, and it's just been a nightmare. So along with that, you have images. That same client was they sell work safety equipment. Amazon was putting Doc Martens shoes, which they don't sell as their image. Do you think any of the changes Amazon's made this past year is going to help that? With the brand registry now, the owner is the only one that can create the actual listing. I don't know if it's going to help though, at the end of the day, right? Things breaking. What are you guys' thoughts, and how do we solve for that problem?
If it works, if they implement it, for sure, it will be a good plan.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think
you're referring to the change in contribution.
It will work.
Bobby?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Are you referring to the changes in contribution of content?
Yeah.
Okay. The scale of the content still presents massive challenges because of, purely scale.
Sure.
I think people are going to be challenged with it with the integration of tools that Amazon's integrating as well. So I don't necessarily expect a massive difference one way or the other, I guess. Yeah.
Things are still going to break.
Absolutely. At the scale that we're talking, I think that's the one thing that a lot of people have a really hard time wrapping their mind around is the literal scale of things. And, a lot of the companies that, that we all work with here have seen the NIST, the new item setup sheet, and seen, maybe 1,000 rows of data being fed. And there are hundreds of thousands of those, right? So I've reached the limit of 150,000 rows and found out that AWS has limits of how much data you can feed. It's a massive amount. It is what I'm trying to get at. It's just an incredible amount of data. And with that, all kinds of problems happen. And I think the critical part is back to Bruno's point at the top, case packs, things that are so simple in the setup process of the NIST. It doesn't get rejected. So when you make a mistake on the NIST and you add that in to Vendor Central, it gets accepted. It's not like a typical platform that would reject it because it's wrong. They accept it. And then basically every part of the flywheel breaks because it's wrong. So back to getting just the basics right. And there's no doubt that we live in an environment where it's cobotic, meaning there's going to be humans and machines involved. So understanding that is super critical as well, I believe.
And to add to your point, George, I think what's super critical is, and I see this in my work all the time, right? A lot of brands are still expecting Amazon to solve it for them. And this is where the worlds of brands and Amazon clash, because Amazon sees itself, and this is to my point earlier, right? It doesn't matter whether you're 1P or 3P. Amazon sees itself as a marketplace that simply connects available demand in the market with the available supply from the brand. And if you are not owning your brand, if you're not owning the processes, you have to deal with the end result, which is then your problem. Sure, Amazon will give you some tools and sometimes even human support to figure it out. But particularly over here in Europe, we're seeing quite the opposite. Amazon offshoring more and more teams to India and Eastern Europe. In the US, we haven't seen that too much yet, but it's going to happen in the near future, where Amazon is also lowering its fixed headcount costs and just popping up the same headcount in markets where it's much cheaper and much more cost affordable for them to have these human resources that need to have the backup. Sometimes they're very good because they're really kind of excited to work on these problems. But as with any human, sometimes you also are on the end of the stick where you're in an endless loop. You first get revised by an AI, they forward you to a human, and then it's a little bit like a lottery ticket, whether they really know how to resolve your unique issue, particularly if you're not clear on how it originated in the first place. So I think this is where also I think a key takeaway here is for brands, right? Ownership of the processes, but also then creating the controlling loops to understand, okay, once I upload my catalog, once I upload my NIS sheet, this is not the end of the process. I need to have certain controlling mechanisms in place over the next couple of weeks and months to actually understand, does it create unintended consequences with penalty charges, so chargebacks or shortages, and then to act fairly quickly. I mean, Bruno, George, Jerome, you will all know much better than what I know, that Amazon has shortened the disputing timeframes that Amazon allows to dispute these issues. And I think this is where brands are often caught off guard, right? Because they think they can just negotiate that away with their vendor manager. And the reality today is it's not as simple as that.
That's a good point, Martin.
Yeah,
And
well,
just grabbing the chargeback part, when a vendor starts, a vendor usually will get between 60 to 120 days for grace period. The grace period will give the chance to the vendor to actually align the internal setup. From my experience, and this is actually one of the signals about all the vendors we work, because they did it poorly in the beginning. But when you think that if you go and you, sorry guys, if you go and you just prepare yourself for this mix of informations that you're receiving, and then everybody is like, oh, chargebacks, what is this? Oh, it's SIOC, it's on-time compliance. And someone will say, well, we're not being charged, so leave it. We have other priorities. I think that it's lacking this understanding how chargeback works, right? It's a 90-day period. The first time you deliver an ASIN to a specific fulfillment center, it will be waived. It doesn't matter if it's grace period, it will be waived the first time. And people will laugh. I say this a lot of times. One of these days I'll get beaten in the street for saying stuff like this, but it's actually, this is the fair part of it, I think, because Amazon will tell the vendor, look, you did this wrong. I'm waiving it this time. You have 90 days to fix it. If you don't fix it, I'll start charging you. And we keep finding vendors that only pay attention to charged values. Waived ones, that's where the powerful messages are. And the risk is what? From one day to the other, what will be the value to convert to charge from waived immediately, from 1 week to the other? So this is something, Martin, that for us, and George, it starts right on the beginning. Once again, upload in the catalog, do it properly. Don't sign to your catalog apple cider vinegar in a glass jar. It's liquid, it's glass. Read the compliance. Amazon, these are two of the worst sets for an ASIN, glass and liquid. You need individual prep, bubble wrap. Amazon didn't explain it to you, but they are warning you every time that you deliver that the first time to a fulfillment center, there will be a prep-related chargeback that will be waived, but vendors are not looking into that. So that's really important too.
Yeah, and I think this is a good segue to switch from catalog to the operational excellence. You can have your catalog set up, you got it great, everything is pushed into Amazon, but are you set up to fulfill the orders? Do you have the inventory, right? Are you accepting the POs on time? Your chargebacks you mentioned. I can't tell you how many people we talk to, because we have the automated tool that disputes these. A lot of brands we talk to, they don't even look at co-op fees and chargebacks. Just the time it takes. And to your point, Martin, they've switched from 5 years to 2 years for shortages. I expect that to happen in Europe as well at some point. You also can't dispute as much. They're limited to that. So it is, it's a big challenge. And let's talk about, how we can help on the operational side. And Bruno, I know you're my guy when it comes to the operational. I send everybody your way. What's one of the biggest, problems that you see that, a quick win, a quick fix that anybody could do to prevent some of these?
I will start with that one.
Yeah.
Start measuring the waived values of the chargebacks. Don't see them as something, okay, I'm not paying, it's not a priority. It's a priority, because that's where the message that something is not properly aligned with Amazon compliance. Start there. Another thing that really helps a lot is what we already mentioned. Don't go forecasting without knowing if you're going with Amazon forecasting data. First of all, be aware that everybody knows where to go to the forecasting model on Vendor Central, but that's actually sell out, and it doesn't mean that it will be your stock. So it's a global that Amazon thinks they're going to sell of that ASIN. So align the catalog, cases or units, and make sure that your forecasting is aligned in the unit of measurement. It starts there. Another thing that we find really important about shortage claims, once again, coming from the units, this is a recurrent thing that we see happening with vendors. They set up the catalog in units, they distribute in cases. Amazon orders 10 units of this. It's a case pack of 2. They send 5. There's a 5-unit shortage claim. It's not. They actually delivered it. It will be quick, cleared, disputed, reversed. but what about the time for the cross-functional team? They could be focusing something else.
Yeah.
So we truly believe in Blue Dot that success for vendor profitability lays in the sell-in part, because the sell-out part, you have all of these amazing tools to help, but the sell-in, that's where you really need to know the game, know the rules, and all about these non-compliances, chargebacks, the risk of shortage claims, and what can cause a shortage claim, what is it? All of those details, we still feel that vendors have a lot to learn about all of these details. And I will leave here again this message for all the vendors in the audience. Amazon Vendor Central, the web interface, is a self-service tool. And I know that a lot of people here in the room, we have backstage conversations. Everybody has kind of the same feeling about AVS. Guys, AVS is there to do the majority of the time work that you could be doing yourself. Amazon didn't train you for that, but you can learn how to do it. It's a self-service tool. Definitely, your teams can improve the knowledge and the management. That's a lot of part of the work that we do, aligning the cross-functional team to work in a single voice, the same data, the same acronym. Sometimes we worked with teams that in Italy were talking some acronyms, and in Spain a different acronym for the same meaning, and then everything will get mixed up in the middle of a meeting. It's this level of detail sometimes that will bring success in vendor.
Yeah. Jerome, you're shaking your head. I'm going to pass over to you. Anything to add there on the operational side? I know you work with a lot of clients on this.
Well, I totally agree. It's like I said, there's a lot of operational stuff which are still very manual. And what I wanted to add in before, you have to see that the way Amazon works a lot is in silos or in business units which don't always work a lot together. So you have to see that the global system of Amazon was built by different teams who, at the beginning at least, I don't think spoke a lot to each other. That's where in Europe, the system was completely copied from what was happening in the States. And typically in Europe, all the charges are on prices with VAT, which doesn't make any sense, but it just copied what was happening in the States. And probably the IT guy didn't know there was a difference and did that. And then if you talk to people inside Amazon, they've got several systems they have to log into to see where maybe the content is on one side or the other side. So, and it's true for data, for a lot of things. So they've worked and invested all their money on the front end. As for customers, it's very seamless. You don't see the complexity behind. But for the brand, they under invested there, and the systems are very complex. And that's typically is an example where AI will not solve lots of different systems. We have a hard time talking to each other. So maybe AI will do one day, but they've been talking about lots of changes all the time. Sometimes they find out that the change is not possible to make because the system is not following up. And usually Amazon announces something and then tests it after it's announced. So you have to be very reactive, very ready. And indeed, the one of the key factors of success, like I said, it's having a team or people which are really involved who do things, but also follow up with things. Because you upload content or you look at chargebacks or you look at on the operational side, the quantities. You need to check that Amazon is right, that the data and the system is right. So there's a lot of human intelligence and knowledge in the back, using tools to go faster. But there's a lot of that, and business acumen and sense checking all the information you have on what Amazon is providing.
Yeah, we see that a lot, especially back in the day. I think on the shortages and chargeback side, I had a lot of conversations where people had no idea that this was an issue. And then, you do an audit and it's literally millions of dollars being lost. I think now a lot more things are aware of this, that Amazon isn't always right. I remember one call I had, they're like, what are you talking about? Amazon data is always right. And I said, no, that's, not the case. And then this all obviously leads to the negotiations, profitability. I want to make sure we spend time there. So I think it's good to switch now to how that impacts it, right? And it's something we're hearing more and more. I'm getting calls quite a bit asking for help where clients are really worried. They're being harder. We had one client say that net PPM was just outrageous that Amazon is requesting. They're worried about getting kicked off of Vendor Central. How do we help? How do you approach these negotiations, especially knowing there's so much, they're getting harder. Amazon's asking for more, demanding more. How do we, what do you do? What do you accept? What's, a short-term just kind of concession versus long-term profitability that you're going to hurt down the road?
I think it's doing the
I'll give my
that.
Oh,
sorry,
Mark.
Bruno, go ahead. Yeah.
No, you go ahead.
No, I don't mind. I mean,
No,
I always say, like, look,
giving a couple.
You go, Bruno.
Martin, you go. You're the
It's 2 minutes.
negotiation. I read all your negotiation posts.
Yeah,
Martin,
you're the negotiator. That's what
you're the negotiator.
I wasn't expecting.
I'm okay. I'm sure we have time to go both. But I think, look, in general, and I'll keep myself short here, it's about doing the homework that you have been avoiding for a while now, right? I mean, a lot of brands, especially large organizations, think of negotiations as I have my budget. I basically start a little bit higher with where I anchor in the negotiation, and then Amazon anchors high as well, and we meet in the middle. That is not how a negotiation with vendor managers these days and Amazon's retail teams will perform. They have very strict targets on what they want to achieve, and increasingly, vendor managers have no problem with your account not growing by a single percentage point year over year, as long as they hit their profitability target. And that means we can no longer just negotiate about budgets or about a cost price increase. We also need to really look at, is our portfolio strategy, listing 100% of our assortment via 1P still the right approach? Or do we need to become more nuanced, potentially withholding part of our selection to then also gain some leverage when Amazon knocks on the door and wants us to list our low ASP everyday essentials that they're very desperate to getting in order to fuel their same day delivery in the US and increasingly also over here in Europe. But that requires nerves out of steel, particularly from leadership teams. So it's before you even enter a negotiation, I think it's incredibly important to be very clear-eyed and also to educate your leadership teams on what success can look like. If your leadership team comes to you and says, we must avoid sales disruption, we need to grow top-line sales, and we must protect our bottom line, you're going to fail. You cannot achieve all of the three at once. You need to pick your battles. And out of the three that I mentioned, sales growth, profit growth, and avoiding sales disruption, you can have maximum 2 at the same time. And I think this is sometimes the very hard part and something that a lot of leadership teams and sales teams cannot wrap their head around. And this is why most negotiations feel very one-sided. Sorry, Bruno, you go ahead.
I will give my two insights for the negotiation coming from operations. Shortage claims. But basically align your internal setup first, right? Think about shortage claims. And Martin, we discussed this recently. Big vendors are being put in a position that, well, I can't close my accounts because I have $1.6 million in shortage claims here that my CFO can reconcile. Well, I can give you 60% of it, but you need to accept an extra agreement for something. Clean the house first. So don't go to the negotiation with these values. So align your setup, align your supply chain. We just discussed that. Shortage claims will probably always be there. It's coming also for the big operation within the fulfillment centers, okay? But there are proven ways to reduce them. The second thing that I would say is think about chargebacks. Chargebacks, they don't get that disputed that easily, right? But if you improve them, you're showing them year on year that you're improving your performance. And we get told by Amazon teams that performance is very important for a vendor. So let's start demonstrating that to them too, right? Another thing coming from operations. Think about why, Martin, help me out here. You know that I have this thinking for a couple of years now. Think about damage allowance. Amazon vendor is a B2B business. We partner with Amazon to grow our brand, okay? But in the end, we're selling and Amazon is doing the retail part, right? So when Amazon is coming to us and saying, well, you sold me your stock and I sold 100 units and I got 10 return and it's a 10% return rate. I'm always on the other side of the table saying, well, you know what? That product I sold you 1,000. So you only have 10 returns, so it's 1% return rate. So this is also something that vendors need to start realizing. It's B2B. So when Amazon comes to us, damage allowance because your returns increased year on year, well, okay, but I also increase my sales to you, so it's B2B. And I think that, of course, this always needs to be a conversation win-win in these negotiations. Of course, that Amazon wants to be collaborative, vendors should also be collaborative, but I think analyzing the data and preparing for these negotiations, it's something that a lot of vendors need to improve too.
My take on that is usually like if you come a bit from the retail and the distribution side, is it's a power play basically. So you have the buyer who is a vendor manager. It's not really a buyer, but they can be a bit that way, and they say, I want to increase my margin, and there's a clash because you want to not give him too much margin because you want to save your own margin. So it's a power play. So a bit to what Bruno says, like, how do you prepare for that kind of power play? Understanding how the Amazon psychology works, which is a bit different from a typical buyer, and being prepared, having all your numbers, understanding what's the target of the vendor manager. Is it growth or is it profitability only? And then the question would be at what cost? And the question will all be about how you play that power play. If the power is all in their hands, you will be in a very difficult situation, because if they can switch on and off your brand, that's a very weak position. That's where typically the seller positioning can be interesting, more in the power play of not telling to the vendor manager, I'll go as a seller, because that's probably not, you probably don't want to say that directly, but the question is, okay, how can you remove the power of the vendor manager or his perception of the power of his power? Because when you negotiate, and that's everywhere in every situation, if the other one is too powerful, it's very difficult to bring in what you have. So the whole question is, how is his perceived power, what he's playing as power, is real? Like, how important is your brand to his category? How important is Amazon in your own mix? Do you have other ways of selling on Amazon through different routes, where you could say, I'm playing in a game that the vendor manager's own sales will go down a lot if you leave, for example. So for me, it's really this negotiation tactic where you have to understand what's in it for him, what is his real target, and how you can downplay that so that you put the level maybe more on a regular base where you're at the same position, which is not very easy. But sometimes you have to leave the table and maybe say, there's maybe another way for me to sell. But it's all around that power play for me.
I think we need to be careful to differentiate between the US and Europe here. I think in Europe, hybrid is okay. I've seen this strategy backfire quite a lot when a 1P vendor says in mid of the AVN, I'm just going 3P. I mean, just ask most brands over $15 million in the US, where Amazon then activates this standards for brands policy. I think, George, you can probably expand on that more. Who are then almost locked in, right? And oftentimes, once the vendor manager has bitten itself into this policy activation, even distributors and other third parties selling on your behalf are not going to be able to win the buy box anymore and get effectively suppressed. So it is also about really looking at, okay, do I fundamentally have the basics under control? And what are my realistic diversification plays that my business is also willing to accept, right? Because in that case, for example, are we really willing to lose a quarter of our sales for the potential upside of a lot of profitability, but thereby the downsides of a sales loss? But yeah, Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to jump on that. I totally mind, just to make sure it's not a good thing to try to go with a hammer and try to play try to reverse a power play. That I totally agree. It's a bad idea, because then they could start to put trouble. They have indeed a lot of power. So indeed, it's more in your preparation of where, and like you said, either there's a way out or there's no way out. If you can't go without the 1P solution, then you need to prepare yourself in a position which is not ideal, because you need them, and you will have to take as long as possible to take that negotiation. But I agree with you. It's more the mental preparation of, okay, is the power really as it is? Sorry, I'll let the others.
I'll. Sorry, George, you go. Sorry, I just had one other
No,
thing to add.
I'm fascinated because at the core principle of Amazon, they do not negotiate. So Amazon's very famous for being misunderstood, and they often do it to basically have an advantage, right? So to call it an Amazon vendor negotiation is actually, in my opinion, a pretty big red flag, let's say. It's not a negotiation at all. Amazon has more operational data on your brand than you do on them. So you're never going to technically negotiate with them. So having that philosophy at the very beginning of entering a NIS into Amazon Vendor Central is really important. Just at the very top of the org, understanding you will never negotiate your way out of unprofitable products with Amazon. It's never going to happen. So back to the operational part, how do you get to profitability and operations? You start with your number one hero product, and you just go basically in deep on that from a data perspective, and start to fill the gaps operationally on that one based on data, and then expand again based on profitability. Most companies will take a to Z approach or an audit of everything, kind of, alphabetical. Like I see a lot, right? Like let's alphabetical audit this by alphabetical or whatever number sequence. So yeah, I just wanted to share my thoughts around how you start operationally, looking at the data, where to start, and then have just a critical high level understanding that you're not going to negotiate with Amazon, and that it really boils down to understanding core principles at Amazon, what it is, what's going to happen in the future because of regulatory environments and things like that. That's where you're going to see the most impact to profitability.
Like Martin said, do your homework.
George,
Homework.
amazing. Yeah, but George, amazing words. That's it. And
Thank you.
we keep seeing, and Martin, I'm sure that you see this in a lot more detail. It's like vendors keep going to these negotiations thinking that Amazon is making them lose money. I don't have profitability with Amazon, but actually it happens in the sell-in. And if you do it right, if you reduce your shortage claims, if you fix the root causes for the chargebacks, because they are basically there for you to fix, and you will stop them. Even if it's on time. In the US, we see a lot of issues with on-time deliveries using Amazon Freight. Guys, come on. It's just an auto dispute. Amazon is collecting. They collected, they delivered late. Come on, that's a no-brainer there. But if vendors actually realize that they don't have visibility and traceability because they, from George's words, that sometimes they don't even know where to get the data, but it's there. If they make it profitable in the sell-in, they won't be so nervous in the negotiation. And then maybe they don't need a cost price increase, because that's usually a demand every year from brands. But I remember a couple of years ago, one of our clients that approached us, that they wanted us to help them to build the narrative for requesting a cost price increase. I asked them a couple of weeks to analyze the operations in processes that I had built a year ago. And he wanted to increase on average 4%, and we found 6-point-something% that we could reduce and save in the logistics operation. So I think all of these will also help vendors to sit in that table in a different way, to talk differently with Amazon, because from George's words, very hard to reduce the co-op agreements. Martin, have you ever, I know about one person, one of our clients, that actually reduced one of the terms, and I think it's the only case that I'm aware. So we don't
you can reduce
negotiate with
terms.
them,
You can reduce terms.
Yeah.
Like fairly regularly. The question is, what are you willing to accept in terms of commercial headwinds? But it's absolutely possible, and it's more
Yeah.
common than most people think.
Okay, I know about one situation last year, and I was happy with that. But it's not what we do, so it's corridor talks or something.
No, it is possible. You need to be creative, and you need to, and this is, I think, the key takeaway here, right? If you want to reduce terms, you need to look at it through the lens of your vendor manager. You're basically asking them to accept a lower margin. No retailer, it doesn't matter whether it's Amazon. You can do the same and try it with Walmart or with any of the retailers in Europe. No retailer will just say yes to this. You, and it is you as the brand, need to show them the way of how you're going to stabilize their margin. It is not Amazon's job to do that. It is your job to do that. And once you switch that mindset and perspective to that perspective, usually, you will be able to kind of have a much more fruitful conversation, not only during ABNs, but also when it comes to cost price increases, et cetera, et cetera.
One really, that's a great point, Martin. And one really simple example that people don't often think about. I know we only have a few minutes, so I'll make this really short, but this literally goes back to my very first meeting with a vendor manager when I sat down and he asked me, what my background was. And I said, hey, I basically have built a marketplace like Amazon in the past. I used open source content management system. I built the whole framework. I scaled it. And he looked at me and he was like, oh, wow, you really get this, huh? And I said, yeah. In fact, this brand that I'm working with them to send traffic to the detail page from outside Amazon. And he goes, what? You're going to send traffic from off Amazon to the product detail page? And I said, yeah, we're going to use that data to get a better deal from you. And he laughed. And so, but my point here is just simply that you can use things outside of Amazon data-wise, whether it's anything really, operational, third party, to help you and offset is the way I look at it. I don't look at it as negotiate, but offset and get to a point of profitability or growth where you can reinvest back into an ASIN. But a lot of times the data is not internal to Amazon, it's external that you can leverage in many different ways, but it can be significant.
Yeah. We only have 2 minutes. I was told to give 5 minutes of questions. So excellent conversation, guys. If you're not following these guys, they constantly on LinkedIn, they constantly post information like insights like this. Follow them. We're going to take a couple minutes, some questions. So feel free to jump in the chat and ask some questions.
Yeah, lots of interesting questions already in the chat. I think recurring topic is around cost support agreements, Amazon's net PPM requests. I think one of the kind of key recommendations that I give in terms of net PPM bound or margin bound agreements always is acknowledge them, do not agree to them. It's a one-way road, right? Once you align and assign a net PPM target, where you say, okay, look, I'm compensating you whenever you fall below that threshold, it's very difficult to get out of it, right? And given that you do not have under control how Amazon prices from a legal and compliance standpoint speaking, and whether there's a pricing error, or even if Amazon decides to mark down items because they are overstocked following a deal event like Prime Day, you're going to fund them if there is an active guaranteed margin agreement in place. So if you really find yourself in a situation where you have to say yes to it, because otherwise Amazon is not accepting your cost increase, or you're so desperate to just get free cash flow in, at least cap these at a certain dollar, euro, or British pounds amount. This is then the key. right? So that it's not open-ended without any kind of ceiling.
Yeah, great advice. Terry, that was a great question. Does Amazon 1P count advertising spend toward the contribution margin?
No.
There's two views. Algorithmically, yes, to a certain extent. The vendor manager will typically see a view where this is not the case, because Amazon follows the principle that for your advertising spending, you receive a marketing service that is being funded, so they cannot spend the money twice to then also fund retail profitability. And this is why retail sales teams will be very adamant. But if you go up the ladder to VP of sales, sales directors at Amazon, they will typically look at a combined view and do what's best for the one Amazon company that they're working with. Happy
Well,
to
the
introduce you to
category
Kevin.
GL, right, Martin?
Exactly.
So yeah, good. Yeah, that's great. Good call out.
All right, I know we're over time.
Great learning, Martin.
Got time
Thank
to
you.
take one more. Somebody want to take Liam's questions, thoughts on ABS, and the best approach to get the most value out of it?
Well, I saw a question from Julia, but I can't find it anymore. It was interesting, I think.
Let's see, Julia.
It was about profitability. I'll send it to Martin or George.
Oh, here it is.
Oh, Julia Salerno.
If the problem is profitability, is it mainly due to price match, and what do you suggest to do? Good question, Julia.
I think it's two-sided. One, distribution control seems to not be in place as much as it could do. And I think this is not an issue that the sales team can often solve, right? This needs to be solved at the leadership team level. But if you're the sales team or sales operations team, it's your job to educate your internal organization why that creates a lot of issues and headaches. And then the second part is, which is a little bit more in your control, become a little bit more focused on where you spend your money with activations, right? You can shift your advertising and media spend towards products that are a little bit more accretive than those items that really are already boosted by the price promotional headwinds that you're facing in the wider market. And the second part is if you're constantly seeing that you're losing the buy box, not losing the buy box necessarily, but it is suppressed or Amazon craps these products out, sometimes it may actually make sense to use part of your price promotional funding and attribute it to those ASINs or SKUs that really struggle the most with it. Don't give it as a structural accrual to Amazon, because then it applies to the entire account, and the products that struggle the most get only a little bit of a boost there margin-wise, but really focus it with a SKU or ASIN filter on those items in your agreement structure. That way it's time limited, and you can also, it's a two-way door, you can backtrack from it. But those are the two things that I think usually need to be true at the same time in order to address this effectively.
Yeah, and I'll add, Martin, I believe you're correct on both fronts. The one thing I do see or have seen over many years is people underestimate kind of the gray market aspect of things. So they may have controlled channels, but then they'll have sellers pop up during promotional events that actually drag things down. And you can tell this through data. If you have, you just measure, at the end of the day, your effectiveness over time on promotions and deals. Mm-hmm. You can start to see this trend. So.
All right. I guess we're going to end it with a piece of advice. What should they prioritize in the next 12 months, knowing all the changes happening?
Figure out what their most profitable ASIN is. Work down the list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and just keep going. Build a repeatable process from the first ASIN.
I will say it's B2B, guys. Stop talking about Amazon profitability. Start looking within first.
Love it. Yeah, I would say don't get blinded by chasing shiny objects. AI is great, but it still requires the brand to have full ownership over processes, and it is not going to solve, also to Jerome's point from earlier, all of your pain points from one day to the other, or even in the foreseeable future. It is a great tool. Use it, experiment with it, but it is not going to be the shiny object that will make all of the profitability issues go away in the next 12 months.
And for me, it's I think Martin said it is be creative. So it's hard work, smart work, and also being creative. So lots of issues you need to do like you didn't do before. So Amazon pushes you into things like, okay, creating new products, having new commercial policies, whatever. It's like there's a lot of things you need to rethink if you want to be successful on Amazon. It's a lot of hard work to be successful, especially if you're an old company with a lot of legacy and a lot of things happening in the market. So yeah, think out of the box. It's more important than ever. Maybe use AI to have new ideas. That could help.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, the problem with AI is AI trains on your, old data, right? So if you're looking ahead and you're trying to understand what to do, look at the regulatory environment. Look at the back-end data fields that Amazon gives you access to now that they haven't ever before, like item of origin, TAA compliant. These sort of things are the biggest opportunities for growth in the US. No one's talking about it. So this is what's coming. It's not the wild, wild west anymore. The data has become 100 times more important than it ever has been, in my opinion. Hopefully this helped everyone a little bit. And again, thanks for the invite here, Bobby. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you guys all. I'd love to do this again. I think there's a lot of topics we didn't get to cover because there's so much good information being shared. So, and thank you all for joining. I see a lot of people joined after this was technically supposed to end. So we appreciate taking time, extra time on your schedules. If you'd like to get in touch with us, there's a QR code you'll see. We'd love to talk, see if we could help with your vendor business. And like I said, follow these guys. They're the best in the business. They share a lot of great information and insights on LinkedIn. And yeah, have a great day, everybody. Good luck. And let's get profitability. Get profitable.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
for the invite.